Summer blockbuster release fans are awaiting 3 sequels to premiere this summer, including Deadpool 3, Bad Boys Ride or Die, and Despicable Me 4. But James Bond films have always been popular for decades, and since Daniel Craig stepped away from that titular role in 2021, people have been speculating what the future of the franchise will look like in the 26th Bond spy thriller, since 8 actors have portrayed the Ian Fleming character with a license to kill for MI6, Her Majesty's Secret Service. Who doesn't want to live the life of a spy? Tell that to Samantha Cain, portrayed by the actress Gina Davis, playing a single mother and member of the PTA in a small town where she had lived peacefully and sublimely with her daughter, and with a secret past that she could not even remember. Just 8 years before, she had emerged from nowhere, already 2 months pregnant, and had been dragged from a nearby river with no memory of her past or who she was. A few years later, the life of Helen, portrayed by the actress Jamie Lee Curtis, was disrupted when she began to realize that a fearless globe-trotting terrorist battling secret agent was the man she had married. Portrayed by the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose life had turned upside down when he had discovered his wife might be having an affair with a used car salesman, while terrorists smuggling nuclear warheads into the United States were at large. Could it happen in real life, or only in the movies? And could that movie drama ever happen to you? Well, in a suburb of Washington, the makings of a summer blockbuster spy thriller are blossoming like the political yard signs on the many medians around communities like Alexandria and Arlington gearing up for the primary elections. And one incumbent Democrat Party congressman, Don Beyer, a multi-millionaire luxury car sales mogul and the 13th wealthiest member of Congress, already sitting on top of a campaign war chest of over $1 million in a safe district, may not be only mourning the cherry blossoms going away, and may not be taking anything for granted, even after no Republican challengers had survived collecting petitions to qualify for the primary ballot in June, especially after an intriguing tale of mystery from the contested 2016 election began to emerge, raising troubling questions about his past. Virginia's 8th Congressional District is, beyond a reasonable doubt, the most reliable Democrat Party district in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, and is so safe for an incumbent that even bookies wouldn't lay odds on a Republican picking up a seat, even though Ronald Reagan had carried Arlington back in 1980 over Jimmy Carter. And now Don Beyer doesn't even have to worry about an election unless some underfunded independent might emerge, since there are no Republicans who managed to qualify. And since April 15th, a few congressional hopefuls, all independents, all unknowns with high dreams and high hopes, have suddenly emerged from nowhere, hoping to suddenly make it big, like magic in a movie. But one pesky independent, who has been floating around the periphery of Northern Virginia politics for almost a decade, may have a hidden ace up his sleeve, because back in 2016, when Virginia had been the only former state of the Confederacy to deliver its 13 electoral college votes to Hillary Clinton, defeating Donald Trump by only just 5 points, small margin, happened to have received a surprise letter from, of all places, the Defense Intelligence Agency to remind him about a former life, which, amongst other things, happens to provide security and advice to embassies and consulates in the State Department, where Hillary Clinton had been Secretary of State, and where Don Beyer had served as U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein. Does that raise a reasonable inference of suspicion, or is that just inscrutable? At least Brian Porter, the prosecutor in Alexandria, says so. And now that matter is before the local circuit court, attempting to compel the prosecutor to convene a grand jury investigation on a claim described as vexatious and frivolous, that in violation of the state bribery statute, VA Code Section 18.2438, which creates a Class 4 felony for a candidate for office had been corruptly offered or promised a thing of value in gift or gratuity with intent to influence his actions. If you had been registered with the Federal Elections Commission, FEC, as a candidate for Congress and suddenly received what thousands of individuals seek each year, selection to become a part of the federal civil service, and here with the Defense Intelligence Agency, taken that job, knowing that under the Hatch Act you would be precluded from continuing running for a nomination. How about if you were the putative frontrunner? Would you still decide to go ahead like a person on a game show and take that chance? How about if there was no evidence that you had ever even applied for the job? It's never a bag of money, you know. And just like offering a bribe is a felony, it's a sort of Damocles that cuts both ways, because at least in most cases, unless it was perhaps a sting operation by federal law enforcement, you can't just take the money and run. It's like a law. So now it's your turn, and time to put on your defense attorney hat, like Perry Mason to help out our congressman in Virginia, Don Beyer, or B. Matlock for that matter, to assist in casting a reasonable doubt. Virginia happens to have a bribery statute just like the residents in the Garden State of New Jersey, whose corrupt politics have spawned tales of intrigue and deceit about characters like Frank I Am the Law Hague, Mayor Frank Wellen, and the Hudson 8 ab scam, which even became the topic of a movie, American Hustle, which won an Oscar or two, and the long-running federal law enforcement operation Big Rick. And on December 7th, a day that will live in infamy, in the year 2007, as it were, one John Mack Lake, the former mayor of Carneys Point, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for offering his opponent, Anthony Rouleau, a job in quid pro quo to withdraw from the mayoral race. And at least in VA8, there was one person, enlightened and educated, who had said that 2/3 of Americans know that quid pro quo means bribe, back during the impeachment proceedings for Donald Trump. So we have a few possibilities to cast a reasonable doubt, as it were, to help Don Beyer's criminal defense attorney out. First, maybe Don Beyer was a really good friend of the recipient of the job, and maybe he violated a few federal hiring regulations to secure his good friend a job. For absolutely nothing, just out of the kindness of his heart. Or second, maybe the unknown candidate, nobody from nowhere, happened to be good friends with Ash Carter, the former Secretary of Defense under Barack Obama, and he decided to create a little affirmative action to help a brother out, with no interest in the election at all. According to USB Heard, if this was just a little gift between friends, no laws have been broken, at least for purposes of the bribery statute, but you still have to prove with evidence that one of these luminaries had a real good friend who was a nobody and an unknown, who they just decided to help out of the kindness of their hearts. Or maybe this nobody was just being hired by DIA to help start a pandemic before it happened. It just happens to be that he had been a former biological warfare planner years ago. You never know. Or this defense argument has a lot of potential if there could be some precedent to establish that as long as the bribe offer does not exceed 6 figures in quid pro quo, or about $30,000 more expensive than the most expensive Volvo at Don By Volvo, or a stack of $1 bills stacked one atop the other, measuring half the height of the front of the White House, you could just take the money and run as a candidate with no penalties at all. $100,000 limit on bribes. Already in New Jersey, in the case State v. Monzo, the courts have declared that a candidate could accept a bribe for any amount, so long as he fails to get elected to fulfill the promise that he had sealed the deal. As a they say courts traditionally eschew speculative damages, and at least the folks at the Meadowlands racetrack know you need to bet with your head and not over it. Little good donor advice. And you look like a winner. So, see you at the races. This message was approved by Major Mike Webb. Honest.
Merry Christmas to everybody! Merry Christmas to everybody!